It's a beautiful day. Why I'm excited and happy, it's because I have a very positive mantra and a vibe about the day. So 2 weeks ago, the media has been filled with shocking videos of MPs calling alleged Amyoga beneficiaries who were shocked to discover that they were on the list. While in Gulu, officials revealed that the MPs last week that the first recipient was not meant to be part of the beneficiaries of the Nabanja Fund, or you can call it the COVID relief. That very past person, they say they didn't have that person on their list. Now, to speak to us and more, we have Mr. Frank Mugabe, the communications officer from the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development, to make sense of this. He's at the center of the implementation. Good morning, Mr. Mugabe.
Good morning, Chamagel.
I know it is. I hate it that we meet when we disagree or agree. We should have a much more, cordial meeting. But what went wrong? What happened to the lists? How did people sneak in names that were not meant to be on the list of the beneficiaries of the Nabanja Relief Fund?
Thank you so much. Maybe we should look at it from how did the process run. You know, once the president...
From the time of registration?
Yes, from registration.
Yes.
Once the president declared, there was an instruction given that the town clerks should run the process at that level.
Yes.
So that we get people who are in need, but particular need, those who work in urban centers. And because we had, implemented a lockdown in urban areas, the central business districts, we sought to assist those who work within those areas, the daily income earners, with this small stipend.
Yes.
So you needed a process where these people are registered. And we said we need a starting point. On a day-to-day, those sort of people would interact more with the office of the town clerk. They go there to register for licenses. The border riders who work within the urban areas register, and their registrations end up in the town clerk's office.
Perfect.
So we said, let's pick on those lists and take them to the villages, have them cleaned with the participation of the village members.
That was
the community members. Yes, and that was the approach actually. That's why you saw in some areas in Kampala, you saw that news. People were tearing...
we read the story in Lubaga.
Exactly.
Yes.
In Lubaga, they were tearing the lists.
Yes, they even wanted to lynch the chairperson.
But you see, we wanted them to participate in the generation of these lists.
Yes.
Because if we were not transparent, we would have said town clerk submit the list without involving the community.
The way you
and we would pay. But we said no. This is a community activity. You have to involve the community in this process. So we took the list to the communities and we thought they would do what is required of them. The simple thing, sit down, look at the list, remove whoever you think is not supposed to be there, put whoever you think is supposed to be there, and submit to the ministry for payment.
At the village level?
Exactly. That should have been the process. And indeed, that happened.
What went wrong?
That happened.
Yes.
Now, the issue of whether some of the people who should be on the list were not the right beneficiaries is another question. Is another question, but also it points to how do we take the responsibilities given to us at whatever level you
From
work.
the village level.
Even at village level, whether you work in the office, whether you work in the town clerk's office, whether you're the LC1 chairperson, whether you are the LC2 chairperson, how do you play your role once you're given a responsibility? Is a quick question.
Yes.
And we are learning it from this process. Because, to tell you the truth, this has been a very successful process.
Successful?
Very successful.
Mr.
In that
some people didn't receive their relief money.
People received money.
Money was sent to wrong numbers.
That's not true. Actually, we rejected all the wrong numbers. Wrong numbers being those that didn't have matching details. If you registered, I'm Frank Mugabe, and I used the Chamagedo's ID to register my line, I wouldn't get the money.
It would go to Frank Mugabe?
No. It would be rejected by the process.
Okay.
That's why, while we intended to implement this in a very short while, you remember the process went on almost towards the end of the lockdown. Because When the lists kept coming in, there are those numbers we kept rejecting on the system. Because once we got the list from the town clerk,
yes,
at the ministry, working in hand with the telecom companies and Post Bank, we ran a cleanup process online, which would check whether the details match on the lines. And whichever number didn't match was sent back to the town clerk.
Mr. Mugabe, the first beneficiary who we actually, even the media ran with the story, was a guy from Gulu. And the Prime Minister, the Right Honorable Prime Minister Nabanja, called him, and we're all excited as a country that now the funds have started to reach the intended beneficiaries. The council comes before the committee in Parliament. This person is not on their list. This phone has never been on after receiving the money. And you're saying that through your processes, this number was valid, this person was on the list, yet the person was not on the list. So I want to know, how did this person meet the hard paper list,
yes,
but on the soft copy, he appeared and he got the money?
Actually, the issue was whether this person deserved to receive the money or not. Because they were saying...
He's a Ugandan, deserves because he is a taxpayer anyway.
No, remember,
but was he a beneficiary, was he vulnerable?
Exactly.
Yes.
They were saying he was not a vulnerable person. And they were saying he had worked in the office of the mayor in that area. But what I know, that this gentleman, yes, had worked in that office, but when we called him, the man lives outside the town, but now comes to do his border riding in town during the day and goes back to his rural area in the evening. The fact that he has ever worked in an office and is long gone from there doesn't deny him the opportunity, you see? But anyway.
The thing is, him as one Mr. Mugabe is a clear description that some people received money, yet they shouldn't have received. They were not vulnerable. Then two, how did he get on the list? Because the hard paper didn't have him.
No. The list, on the list he was there. On the list he was there. You see, there was no way we would pay anybody without being on the list, and that list being certified by the town clerk.
Mr. Mugabe, this
certification by the town clerk. Yes. Let me tell you, there is a problem. Whenever we have processes like these, we usually want to jump onto the flows. Okay. But those flows do not define the entire process of an activity.
I totally agree.
I will tell you this. There is no process on earth as we know it that doesn't have a flow. Okay. But it is very wrong to jump onto one single flow and dent the entire process. Well, it's very wrong. Yes, we can fault the town clerk. Yes. At that level for doing such an unthinkable thing, yes, including people that shouldn't have received. But there are other thousands of beneficiaries. Remember, we paid 500,001 beneficiaries out there who have benefited from this money and have changed their lives. I'll tell you one example. I went to Mbale. There is an institute, a rural institute actually, a community institute, that closed. And these tutors were sent home. When we sent them the money, one paid rent, a lady, by the way, used part of the money to pay rent. The 100,000? Yes. And part of it, she deposited for 2 sacks of charcoal to start a charcoal selling business. She even just deposited part of the money she required to pay. But as we talk now, she's making in an excess of 5,000 every day as profit from her business. So to that woman, you can't tell her it was wrong to do this. To me, she's a perfect example of a good process. Of a vulnerable and a good process. Yes. That one I want to agree. But I want to understand, did you set out to embarrass the Prime Minister? Because she claims mafias hijacked the project. She was saying there was some ill-minded elements within the PM's office and all that. And it seems to be no one is taking responsibility of the flaws in the entire process. No, if there were any flaws, there are responsibility centers, like I've explained. Yes. The LC1 has a responsibility. The town clerk has a responsibility. The ministry has a responsibility. The telecoms have a responsibility.
They have a responsibility,
okay?
yes.
Like you remember during the process, we had an issue of double payment.
True.
That was the responsibility of the Post Bank. Because it was at their point that this hitch happened.
Yes.
Now, if we are talking about registration not being in line with what we said, then the registration point takes the responsibility. And that is why we as Ugandans, we need to start holding our leaders accountable. A town clerk is a local leader, okay? He is probably a relative to a person who is making noise. That, you know, I should have been on that list, but I wasn't. Because honestly, if we tell you the town clerk is going to lead the process at that level, then there should be engagement with the town clerk's office to see that there is a seamless operation. But what dismayed me personally, individually,
yes,
the other political leaders who should have taken on the mantle once the process was declared. Instead, you know, we were saying, you know, we are not in the ones in the lead. But you see, when a program comes in an area, it doesn't matter who is leading
benefits
it.
the people.
What matters is how do you work as a team at that level to implement the project for the communities. Because as a ministry, we set the guidelines. We said, town clerk, work with the village team members, leaders, generate lists. Let the community members look at the lists, see who deserves, put them on the list and send to us. And by the way, we never paid any list that wasn't certified by the town clerk. The town clerk had to certify, because you see.
So what the town clerk certified is what you send the money to.
Exactly. And they have a responsibility for that list.
On Twitter here, there is a one, okay, this person is called Chomviki26 on Twitter. These are handles how they use. And she goes that, Mr. Mugabe, thank you so much for the clarity, but just so you know, I'm a vulnerable saloon woman who never received any of that. I registered from the village level, like you said, but my money never appeared. They kept saying, Zidja, Zidja, Zidja. Indeed, people ate our money. What is the ministry going to do about that going forward? Because these projects are still coming through.
Yes. I want to think that she's in a category of people who were expecting to receive money, but actually never made it onto the final list that was sent by the town clerk. Because
so what would have hindered them not to be on the final list?
No, we were serving a small list of beneficiaries. Okay. 501,000 beneficiaries across the country.
Of the 42 million people.
So we gave villages threshold. We said, village A, register 30 people. Okay. Because that's your threshold. But you found that the LCs, because they were stormed by people, instead of registering 30 people, they registered 200. So, that list that was generated at the village, honestly couldn't make it as it is onto the system in its entirety. So we had to stick to the 30. So
then this brings me to the question.
Yes.
So how does the ministry now aggregate the 30 out of the 200? What process?
It was not our role. It was still the town clerk working with the team generating the lists. At that level. They had to agree.
So all you needed 30.
All we needed was the 30. And because it is them who know the people who are needy.
Yes.
The ministry is not down there.
Yes.
It's the town clerk and the village members who are down there. Once they gave us the names, we paid those. So I would understand her. But the other thing we need to do, Chamagero, as Ugandans, let's embrace digital.
Digital.
Let's embrace digital. And digital requires you to have streamlined details about yourself.
Okay.
If you're going to open an email, they're going to ask you for a phone number. They're going to ask you for, a few questions that require you to be transparent, okay? If you input wrong details, it means you're going to distort your facts, and therefore they will not be matched. So we found during this process many numbers that were registered using wrong ID numbers. Okay. And that is
relatives and all.
Exactly. People jumped onto friends' IDs, relatives to register their lines.
But you see,
but now they need to streamline.
Mr. Mugabe, let's be realistic. You're telling people to go digital in a country where the internet penetration is not wholesomely covering, where the Minister of ICT told us that we'll have Wi-Fi in Kampala and it only goes on at 3 a.m. in the morning and by 5 it is off. You're telling us to go digital in a country where we have taxes on data, where Ugandans cannot afford all this. Are you realistic, Mr. Mugabe?
Before you get to that level of usage,
yes,
you need to streamline you're joining the portals.
Yes.
And that is the level for me I want us to clean first.
Okay.
For example, I want us to clean our telephone lines.
So you want us to get from the feature, from the community to feature phones?
No, if you use a friend's ID to register your line, yes, please go and register it in your own IDs.
Yes.
Okay? Streamline those details. Because let me tell you, if you had the 500 and 1,000 names
in the system,
clean in the system, we would pay all that money at once. Okay. Because these are digital processes. By click, you pay all the names.
All of them.
But imagine how long it took us.
You've not even paid some of them. Some of them
others missed. Actually, others missed. I could tell you, I think we left out about 100 people.
Oh dear.
Because their details couldn't be matched at any time. We kept receiving numbers. Once they were run through the system, we had to send them back to the town clerk. And remember, the town clerk's office, they were getting names from a paper like you're holding onto the system. So they are typing page by page. Once they are finished with the batch, they put those behind. Now, when we send back those numbers after we have received them and run, they are not matching. It means that the town clerk's office, they are going to go back to those papers.
That's tedious.
Because as they are typing, you could type a 2 instead of a 1. So you need to cross-check on the paper where you picked the raw material.
What you're alluding to, Mr. Mugabe, if I understand it right, if people had registered rightly so, all you needed was to tap into the NITA database and you're in position to help them.
And we'll be good to go. We would be good to go.
Wow.
And that's why those whose details were matching and names were sent were the first recipients of this money.
This entire process, Mr. Mugabe, what has it taught you as a Minister of Gender, Labour and Social Development?
As a ministry, for us, by the way, it's a normal process for us at the ministry. Remember, we have been paying the elder persons. One time we were paying them through mobile phones.
My mother got that money one day and she was so excited.
Thank you so much. So for us, we are used to this process of paying the vulnerable communities through digital platforms. And that's why I want us to embrace this. You see, there's always a challenge in uptaking digital innovations. You introduce Twitter, people want to first resist, but later they join.
They understand.
You introduce Facebook, people want to resist, but later they find themselves all pouring there.
Yes.
But where we are going now, everything is going to be digitalized. All your details, you're not going to need to carry cash. People are now doing cashless transactions.
When you say that,
even government processes are being digitalized.
That one I
Procurement is being digitalized. The details about civil servants are all digitalized. So everything is online. And as so, even citizens should join the same.
When you say that digital is actually is the new frontier and we should embrace it, I totally agree. But as some government workers in sync with this, because you could go to, I'll give you an example, you could go to Wakiso district and you go in the clerk's office, like you've said, they have everything written on paper and they'll send a file around. There is that redundancy and sluggish behavior of pushing papers and all. While you're advocating for this, are all government entities in line with this? Are they understanding the new dispensation and are they embracing it?
Like I said, the government is now taking it on. And finally, those who have not adopted to it will have to adopt to it because those are the processes we are taking on. Everything is being digitalized. So it helps if we all embrace it at a go because it is going to ease extension of services to our people. Because honestly, if I have all the details of the residents in village A, and we want to extend a service to that village, it will no longer need so much, processes to have that services reach there. if we want to pay the people in that area, let's go to the details that we already have. Okay, people are well registered, details are matching. Do a small cleanup, because cleaning up is always a must. It's called validation.
Yes, you have to
just because people change. You're here today, tomorrow you're there.
And people die.
So you just, exactly. Today you're here, tomorrow you're not here. So you just do a small validation, and that is all. Once you have done a validation, you go on and extend the service to the residents.
Well, that is Mr. Frank Mugabe, the head of communications from the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development. Mr. Mugabe, any projects within your ministry that are currently running where the youth can tap into? What opportunities are there in your ministry now as you're finalizing this convo?
Thank you so much. Our ministry serves all Ugandans. Youth, we have projects running for the youth. We have the Green Jobs project running now. We are working to extend startup tools to Juakalis, guys at washing bays, in saloons, in bakeries. We go assess them at their workplace, see what items they don't have, and we buy this and give them to uplift their business.
What are the prerequisites for that?
The prerequisite, the teams go out in the field. And this one, we want to find people doing something.
Oh.
Yes. Because we don't want to, this sort of planning where we are planning from here for the person at the bottom. We now want to start from the bottom
to up.
We come to you, you say, me, I'm in a workshop, and what I lack is a sawmill.
Yes.
We buy you the sawmill. If you assure us, it is going to improve your business. So that's the Green Jobs project.
Nice.
We have the graduate volunteer scheme. Many graduates come out of our institutions and they are stuck. That project seeks to place them at a workplace, say at NTV. If I studied mass comm and journalism, you work here, you're able to be paid some small money for you to gain a skill for 12 months. And the success is that over 73% of the people who have been placing over the last 2 years are getting jobs after that. So it's a good thing, and we are going to expand it. We also have...
so that is for only the graduates?
Yes, that's for graduates. But for those who are not graduates, there is a new project called apprenticeship. Now, apprenticeship, you want to do what Chamagero does, but you've never been to school, in a journalism school. We bring you here, and you learn on the job. And your skill is able to be certified after that. And the paper you get, the qualification you get, is able to get you a job anywhere across the globe.
Now, so someone in Abim district or in Moroto district, how do they tap into that? That's a big opportunity.
Yes, the apprenticeship is something new. We have just finished developing the curriculum. And we're going to be running sensitization campaigns about it. Because somebody in Abim, we will be placing them. If they show interest, we pick them and place them in a workplace near their area.
Within a bit.
Exactly. So you don't have to do long travels.
Wow, nice.
But we also have the Uganda Women Entrepreneurship Program, which has done massively very well. I want to appreciate the women of Uganda. They have received money and used it very well.
They have financial discipline.
Can you imagine their repayment rate is over 80%?
But
80%. They pay. 80% repayment rate is astronomical. Even the commercial banks, they will tell you, we struggle to reach there. So we want to thank the women of Uganda. And then we have the disability grant. Any person who has a disability or a person who takes care of a person with a disability, you are allowed to form a group of 5 people, and we extend a grant. Government extends a grant. For the other groups, it's a loan, like for women. But for the person with disability, it's a grant. So we give you the money and you don't have to return it. 5 million per group. And that money, I want to encourage the leaders. Persons with disabilities don't have this information. The leaders have the role to pass this information to the persons with disabilities so that they come and get this money and start various enterprises.
There you have it. That is Mr. Frank Mugabe. Thank you so much. The opportunities that are there, I'm grateful that the youth can actually tap into it. So if you're youth and you're out there and you've been listening and you're watching these, please just log on to the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development. Acquaint yourself with more of this information. The leaders at the different layers tap into this and cascade it down to your locals in your area. I'm Andrew Chamagero. I will take a break for now and we'll be back shortly. Good morning.
You're watching Morning at NTV. On the next episode
is brought to you by...
On the next episode...
You may refuse to acknowledge me as your wife, which in truth I still am. And I am the mother of your children and business partner.
Nina, you will be left penniless for being stubborn and not accepting my financial proposal. Agustin told me that the prenuptial agreement that we signed will be valid in the American court.
Well, my lawyer says otherwise. Are you still upset about the problem with Gabriela?
Don't come near me. I told you I don't need you.
Everyone needs someone, Franco. Here. All right.
Regina, how are you?
Do you and I know each other?
Yes, it's Jorge Perez.
Jorge, of course. No, it's been too long. It really has.
Yeah.
I didn't recognize you. Hey, come here. It's so good to see you.
I know there's something going on with you.
No, Godfather, what do you mean? I can assure you, Gabriela is
watching Morning at NTV.
Indeed, Morning at NTV, and we are live from Kampala Serena Conference Center. I'm Andrew Chamagedo. Now, we still have another member of parliament that happens to be from, that is Colin North, Honorable Sam Opio. A member of parliament is with my colleague Stephen Mbide talking